I think part of the answer, no matter what it is to increase the amount and of these values that we've been talking about in our children, our communities, and in the world around us. And I wanted to ask you, you seem to have a pretty strong sense of masculine energy. Where did that come from for you? Was your dad a masculine guy? Did he teach you in the ways of men?
without ever talking about it. He just did what he had to do.
Yep.
He wanted to, he fixed things, went to work, got stuff done. And I think I certainly had that going in the military. In the military, a no excuses mentality. I think one of the biggest difference between masculine and feminine energy is that masculinity is about objectives, and femininity is, to some extent, about rationalizing why you can't meet expectations. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To some extent, mm-hmm. in the sense that,
well, you need both of those in some cases. Right?
But you do need both because, look, masculine, I don't want to live in a world of only men.
No.
Okay? And it's not just a sex thing.
No.
It's because masculine values are relentless. Okay? And there is no flexibility on it. Women provide a flexibility. They look at things differently. They are complementary. Now, guys can complain about, oh, damn, wife always spoiling the kid. I tell them to take out the garbage, and she's got an excuse why they can't. Oh, it's cold out there. Okay, well, men, maybe it is cold out there. Maybe it doesn't make sense for your kid to get frostbite taking out the garbage. On the other hand, women, maybe it's not a bad thing for them to do something that's hard and unpleasant because it needs to be done. So, there's a dichotomy there. I certainly, and there are no more feminine women than Cuban women. I married a beautiful Cuban immigrant, and we're very different. I'm Scotch German. I just did my one of those DNA things, and it's like compared to me, Mitt Romney's ethnic.
Right.
Okay.
99% likely to get in a fight.
But efficient. I like to joke about my kids. They're efficient, thrifty, yet passionate. And the Cuban family. The Cuban family came over for my wife's birthday last weekend, and I felt like I was on I Love Lucy and everyone else was Ricky. But it was but to say that cultures are not different is just a lie. It's not better or worse. My family never shouted or yelled. They shout, yell, and then they hug. And you mix that up. We have my wife and I have very different personalities. I think they're complementary, but that doesn't mean there's not friction sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think men and women are very different. And I think we should, why are we trying to turn women into men and men into women? Figuratively, if not literally. Literally is that's a whole other argument and discussion. But
right,
and you look at something like the military's Disney princess ad. Everyone focuses on how the girl in this army ad has two mommies, but that's not the issue. The issue is it's done in Disney princess style. Who exactly are they trying to appeal to? Do they think that some freshman at Wellesley is going to say, yeah, well, this gender studies program's great, but I'm going to go enlist and go to Fort Chaffee? That's the people who fight and win our wars in general. Again, in general, are affluent suburban males looking for a challenge because they don't have to be there, and rural. And inner city kids who want to be in a tough environment where they can prove who they are and get a job, maybe get some opportunities out of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, of course, are legacies. My dad was at D-Day. My father was at Quezon. Those are the guys who are the backbone of the army. Now, I'm not saying. Look, I led women. I worked for women in the military. And I'm certainly not insulting their commitment or their skill or anything else. But the fact is, the military is primarily about young, aggressive males and young, aggressive male energy. And it has been for 5,000 years.
It should be, and it should be preserved and channeled. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what that's what. Much like in normal society, like Roman society, you had the pater familias, and one of his jobs was to keep the young males in line.
That's right.
Okay, and that's why we have non-commissioned officers and officers, to keep the young males in line. Young males are unbelievably dangerous.
Yes,
they are a time bomb if they are not disciplined.
Well, if you don't give them things to do, like make babies, have a family, build stuff, protect stuff, master stuff, provide stuff. If you don't do that, they just go around and destroy stuff.
Yes. That's true. And again, in general, and
we talk a lot in generalities. It's okay. There's always specific cases that prove the rule too.
I like her. Well, what about Gina Carano? Okay, there's one girl who can take on. I love those. I love those Hollywood movies where now they always have to have they'll have King Arthur, and they'll be like, one black guy, and he's like, oh yes, I'm the Nubian. And then they have one beautiful woman who's like 110 pounds, and she's like wielding the broadsword, and she's taken out the Black Knight who's like 350 pounds, and he's got a halberd, and she's taking him on, and it's you don't need to do that.
No, definitely.
You don't need to do that. Okay.
What are you doing with your kids? How are you trying to transmit these values to them? Do you sit down and talk to them? Do you lecture them? I lecture my kids sometimes, but more than anything, it's really
my kids are teenagers. They don't. I think you have to lead by example. And frankly, I wouldn't have a lot. Like if my kids sat down and took notes when I talked, I'd probably lose respect for them. You gotta find your own way. I know these are enduring truths. You can talk till you're blue in the face to people. That people learn by doing. They learn by experience, and a lot of people refuse to learn by experience. They deny their experience, and they tend to be unhappy people. We call them liberals, and it's. I think, I always find it amusing when people are like, "Yes, I've managed to transmit my values to my kid." No, your kid chose to have your values. And maybe you had something to do with that. But at the end, it's your kid's choice. And you got to hope that they make good choices. But that's part of becoming an adult. You have to decide where you stand. And a certain percentage of people are going to make mistakes. You look through history. And one of the things, especially Roman history, back to Rome, you had Marcus Aurelius, right? Who's this warrior, scholar, philosopher, and his son is Commodus, who's a freaking nut job and totally incompetent. History is replete with sons who fail to live up to the standards of their father. Now, of course, by definition, most of the great guys exceeded their own fathers. Alexander was greater than Philip, but at the end, I think you just got to hope and pray. You do the best you can to model the example, give them the opportunities, and then hope and pray. And a certain percentage will do fine, and a certain percentage are going to fall out.
That is an interesting thing to bring up, which is, as a father, you can do all the right things. You can live your life in the right way. You can model the correct behaviors. You can give the kids the right books, teach them all the right things. And at the end of the day, guess what? They're going to do whatever the fuck they want to do.
Well,
and they may or may not do it right way.
And it kills me. You look at some of these, you'll look at the news and you'll see, in court, some scumbag who's murdered his girlfriend or shot up a post office or, set some on fire. And you'll see his family. His family looks perfectly nice, and they probably were. And they're like, I took him to church and everything else, and he just turned out bad. A certain percentage of people are, and that's terrifying. Hopefully you're able to teach them, don't do something that makes a decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. There are, people who have ruined their life with one stupid move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's almost, in some ways, that's the best you can hope for, is you give them everything, model everything you can, hope they don't screw anything up permanently until they have a chance to figure it out on their own. But yet, the expectations of fathers on sons, these are archetypical stories. These are throughout all of history. I was watching this really funny show, Mythic Quest, on Apple TV. Really, really well done. I highly recommend it. And they were talking about this new storyline they're coming up with. And they're like, and at the end, you take off the mask and it's his father. And the guy's like, oh, you mean like Star Wars? Exactly. But there's a reason why it relates and it resonates, because fathers have expectations of their sons. Sons know that there's expectations from their fathers. There's competing interests for resources. And it's just it's a historic kind of struggle.
Now, this is interesting. It just occurred to me. Look, I got challenged a long time ago by a chaplain to read a chapter of the Bible every night, which I have for about 15, 20 years. And I would skip around at first. Now I started with the New Testament. I'm working to go all the way through. It's going to take me a couple of years. I'm on Proverbs now. And Proverbs is, if you don't know, it's a set of, basically the wisdom of Solomon. And he says a bunch of things. An astonishing number, Jack, are about, a poor man with a good son is happy, while a rich man with a wanton son is saddeth. And it's not just one or two. This is a theme.
Yeah.
And I just think that's interesting. This book of ancient wisdom. By the way, they ought to teach the Bible. And not simply because I think everybody should be a Christian. Obviously, I think everybody should be my religion, because I think my religion's correct, as I suppose people who adhere to other religions or no religion consider theirs correct. But it's the basis of Western civilization. There's so many things in it that relate to stuff you see every day. Like the term apple of my eye is like in there. All these little turns of phrases, I'm constantly coming over them going, oh, that's where that came from.
Hilarious.
And I don't think, I think to be an educated person in the West, you should have some understanding of what the Bible says, even if you choose not to believe it, simply because you want to be educated. And of course, they wouldn't do that because, I don't know, was it, oppressive European males wrote it, except of course that's not who wrote it, but whatever.